for Higher Education. Dr. Tubbs provides technical support to the Health Resources and Services Administration, Rural Communities Opioid Response Program. His expertise extends to multi-sector consortiums in rural communities, assisting grantees in planning and implementing their work plans to address SUD and OUD. As an executive director of social services and a counseling program director, Dr. Tubbs demonstrated strong leadership skills by working to provide services for the unhoused population. His commitment to client care and team development resulted in enhanced program effectiveness. He is very experienced in all he does, and we are very lucky to have him teaching us about motivational interviewing. So I'd like to turn the time over to Dr. Tubbs.
Thank you kindly. Welcome back, everybody. This is the fourth and final installment of motivational interviewing, and just to hop in so that we can get started. I appreciate everybody for joining the first three. So just a quick recap. From session one, we talked about engaging, creating a partnership. We also talked about trying to understand what influences the patient or the client. And then we also discussed, how to identify some of their behaviors. And some of those behaviors are what affect their decision making. And then 5 is to focus on that ambivalence, find out what it is that causes them to make the decisions that they've made, or and also to understand where the hindrances are for them in making a change. Session 2, we talked about the 4 processes, the 4 main processes in motivational and interviewing. Engaging, self-explanatory. Difficult to have a conversation with someone you're not engaged with. Focusing, evoking. Evoking is that part where we're getting them to understand that there's a change that needs to be made and to find out where they are with that change. Talk about the positives. And then the next thing is planning. And the planning is exactly as it sounds. We talked about that. You want to make sure that we plan a path to their success that is for them, not for us. So in planning, again, I mentioned before that, if planning may be, if you're smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day, let's see if we can go to half, or a quarter, excuse me. We can go to quarter of it. In the planning phase, this is about them. It's about goals that they can accomplish. And then in session 3, we talked about some of the motivational interviewing examples, and you saw a few. You saw how some of the interviewers were disconnected. You saw how some continued to ask open-ended questions. You saw how one was very combative. And then one of the last examples that we kind of got to share, but we didn't get to see the whole thing, was someone walked into a pharmacy and began speaking with one of the pharmacists about what could be done because there was now no smoking at their workplace. So this week, what I want to get into is we're talking about ORs. And this is a piece of ORs right here, the trans-theoretical model, what we talked about: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then maintenance. A lot of the pre-contemplation will take place before you even meet somebody. Once we have that initial appointment, once we engage and to really have those conversations with them, then that's when we get into contemplation. And then preparation and action are the things that generally end up following sometime after you've had that initial interview with that patient or that client. Well, we always want to make sure that we are mindful that this is at their pace. It's not our pace. So sometimes somebody may be at contemplation for some time, and that's fine. This change is about them, and it's not about us. So this week, the ORS method. Really straightforward. Open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and then summarizing what you're listening to. One of the most, I think for myself, one of the biggest benefits in the ORS method is when we get to the affirmations part. because you always want to accentuate the positives. Um, they're there, they're before you, they're discussing. Sometimes they're a little reticent to discuss everything, but if they're there and they're with you and they're willing to have the conversation, one of the things that we've got to do is to make sure that we accentuate those positives. So step one, we've got to ask the open-ended questions. I don't know if you recall, I think it was in the second session when I said that, oil is open-ended question is like oil in an engine. It's what keeps the conversation going. We can quickly ask closed-ended questions, and we always got to be mindful that the people that we're interviewing, that's our environment. That's not their environment. They would be just okay with being able to answer a closed-ended question because they've responded. They may be a little nervous, but they've responded to your question. They've given you an answer. And then they wait for you to give them another answer, or excuse me, ask them another question. And that can kind of make the interview go a little longer than it should and probably make it a little tougher than it should be. So this is one of the benefits of having asking open-ended questions.
Open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries, those make up the micro skills. We call them OARs, O-A-R and S. And today we're talking specifically about open-ended questions. My name is Dawn Clifford. I'm a motivational interviewing trainer, one of the authors of the book, Motivational Interviewing in Nutrition and Fitness, and a nutrition and public health professor. Open-ended questions are a beautiful way to get quieter clients to really do some talking. There's something really amazing that happens when clients have the space to really talk out their feelings, talk out their experiences, and share with another person. That talk therapy piece is a key piece of what makes motivational interviewing so powerful. And when we remember to take our closed-ended questions and switch them over to open-ended questions, our clients will really be encouraged to elaborate. Open-ended questions start with the words what, how, why, and tell me more about that. Now, one word of caution about the why. When you open up a question using why, you have to be very conscious of your voice tone. Why would you want to do that? That could sound really judgmental. So if I notice my voice tone and say, why would you want to do that? Then I can ask that question in a very non-judgmental sounding way. Don't forget about your tell me mores about that. Tell me more about that is a beautiful way to open up a question and to invite the client to elaborate. Well, technically, tell me more about that is a sentence and not a question. In the MI world, tell me more about that really does count as a question. Now, if you end up asking a few closed-ended questions, it's not the end of the world. It's absolutely fine, and you can certainly conduct a motivational interviewing session with closed-ended questions. Where this might become a little difficult is if you're with a quieter, less talkative client. Then you're really going to want to be conscious of how you open up your questions using those open-ended prompts. Again, what, how, tell me more about that, and why. Now, after you ask those open-ended questions, remember the power of silence. For some clients, it might take a second for them to process what you asked them and prepare the response. So after you ask those open-ended questions, get comfortable just closing your mouth and waiting patiently for the client to respond. No need to reword the question or try asking it in another way right away. Just go ahead and wait patiently for your client to respond. The power of silence is an incredible thing within a motivational interviewing session, and you'll be amazed at what clients share when they're given the space, when they're prompted with some beautiful open-ended questions to share a little bit about what their life is like, their personal motivators for change, and what ideas they have for how they might go about making that change. They really do come up with some amazing responses when we simply ask the question and then wait patiently for them to respond. So remember, take those closed-ended questions, switch them into open-ended questions, and invite your clients to expand and explore on their personal lives and their experiences when it comes to behavior change. Again, my name's Dawn Clifford, and thank you so much for watching. Open-ended questions is your motivational interviewing tip of the day.
I like that one. One of the things that I wanted to add to that is when you are asking open-ended questions and you're crossing T's and dotting I's, one of the things that I would suggest is when you do ask an open-ended question, make sure that you let them know that there's no pressure for you to answer. You can say something, to the effect of, "Hey, look, is there a specific reason why you want to continue to you want to continue drinking, you know, in the middle of the day at work?" But again, going back to what she said in the video, make sure you check your tone. And in that, also let them know it's okay. Take your time. Yeah, we're not in a rush, answer when you're ready. Because what you want to do is you want to remove any of the nervousness that you can. Now, of course, you can't dictate if someone will or won't be nervous, but what you can do is you can make the atmosphere a little bit easier for them to answer these questions. So finishing off an open-ended question with, no rush, take your time. Let me know if you even need help to answer or something of that nature. Just let them know that this is a team sport, and you don't have to come up with certain answers, because I can be honest with you, some of the questions that you ask, some people have never had these questions asked of them, so they don't even know how to answer. So taking a step back, and I don't know if you recall, like in probably second session, that's when I said I was joking, but I was like, you know what? Sometimes it's time to shut your pie hole. You've asked the question. If you're at the point of asking questions, you've already engaged. You're already worked on establishing a rapport. It's okay. Stop talking. And there's also there's a couple of kinds of silence, right? You got the creepy silence, you have the uncomfortable silence, and then you have the silence where you can still let someone know that you're there with them. We're in this together. There's no rush. You can remove any kind of pressure. So always be mindful that you have to pivot. Be ready to pivot at any point in time. And one of the reasons why I wanted to say celebrate ambivalence is because when you get to ambivalence, I mean, that's making some headway, because now you start to talk about some of their indifference to change or why they really want to change. Because see, if they start talking to you, if you start having conversations about behavioral change and they're having the conversation, that means that they're considering it. And I know some people may want to push past this really quick, but you know what? Stay there for a little while. Stay there, because what they're wanting a lot of their questions answered, a lot of their worries, for you to settle some of their worries about next steps. Because when someone is in the throes of substance misuse, be it alcohol or opioids or things of that nature, they haven't looked beyond the use for very long, or even they don't do it very often. Oftentimes people go back into use. They return to use, and we don't like to say relapse. Some people go back into, they return to use because they don't know anything different. Granted, nobody, they hadn't been doing this for, multiple decades and things of that nature. So it's not that they don't remember things before, but if you've done something so long, you forget what it looks like on the other side. So when you get to ambivalence, that's a place where they're actually considering it. So always be mindful when they're there. Don't try to rush them through that process. Let them stay there for a while. Talk about the pros and the cons, because what you want to get them to communicate with you. Um, many times with substance use, you have people who use in groups, and but you have a lot of people who use alone, and they use alone for a reason. So if this person is beginning to talk to you and say they're still using the same substances, using the same substances that they've been using or they used when they came to you, the fact that they're having that conversation is a huge plus. So again, just be mindful not to push them through this process too much. The next step is affirmations. And this is what I alluded to earlier. Sometimes we have always got to affirm the positives that we hear in these interviews. Oftentimes people have been, people will beat themselves up. And you always have to know that if you are working with someone, if it's food, if it's substances, if it's exercise, whatever it may be. I mean, even if it's physical therapy, if they show up, now granted, it's in the next video, you'll see the difference between, affirmations and cheering. But if they show up, acknowledge that. Hey, you know what? Glad to see you today. I'm glad you made it. This is 3 days in a row. You're showing up. I like it. It's 3 weeks in a row. I like it. What else is going on? These little motivations are what cause people to take that next step. And I like the way she describes it in this video about affirmations versus cheering. And it's a great description. And I think that many of us would do well to really pay attention and to not just apply this professionally, but we can apply this personally as well.
Sometimes, give me an A, give me an F, give me an F. Okay, AFF, affirmations. That is what I'm talking about today. So affirmations are very different than cheerleading. Let's talk a little bit about the difference. I sure do have an inner cheerleader that likes to come out and tell my clients they're doing a good job and they can have it and you got this, right? And sometimes we do need some cheering. Sometimes we need to know that we've got somebody, in our court cheering us on. But affirmations in motivational interviewing are very different than cheerleading. Affirmations are more specific, whereas cheerleading may be more kind of an extension of that writing reflex that sees that something might be getting in the way of progress towards change. And so affirmations are more specifically about a person's underlying strengths that they are displaying, that they have displayed, or their efforts that they're putting forth into something, or those really positive intentions that they have about change. And so I just encourage you to listen for a moment about the difference here in some of these phrases. Little quiz. Tell me if this is cheering or affirming. The first one here is, you are doing so well.
All right, I'll pause it right there for a read. Just by a show, I was about to say a show of hands, like I can see everybody's hand. Who thinks that
Dr.
that
Dubs,
statement
we
was
can't hear
cheering?
you.
Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. No, my question was, who thinks that was cheering, or who thought what that was an affirmation? And just, you don't have to be right or wrong.
I see some cheering in the chat.
Wow, I've done my job well. Yes, that is cheering.
What's that? That's a cheer. You have applied yourself and worked hard to achieve these changes. That's an affirmation. Affirmations often start with you. Cheer, you are an awesome mom. Affirmation, you are someone who cares deeply for your children and you're willing to do what it takes to keep them with you. Affirmation, here's another cheer. You are rocking sobriety. Affirmation, you have great determination to create the life that you want for yourself. Do you feel the difference here? We can also notice sometimes when we say things like, I am so proud of you, or you are rocking it, there is an implicit message there that I condone and support you when you are doing fill in the blank, which implicitly implies, redundant, that you are not proud of them or supportive of them if they are not doing that particular behavior. And we want to be real careful about this in the change process with people. Okay,
So difference between cheering and affirming, you can feel the difference there. So affirmations, we're going for those underlying strengths or efforts or intentions that are going on. It's really kind of fun to refresh like strengths sometimes, like Google character strengths. Look at that list for a minute. Start to think, okay, what are the characteristics and strengths that my clients bring to the table? And then when we're forming an affirmation in motivational interviewing, we start with you and we state and highlight those strengths. We're shining that spotlight on that person's strengths. All right, have fun with the affirmation practice. Let me know how it goes.
All right. Y'all did a great job. Yeah, everybody who answered, you did really good. If you remember about the example that I gave before the video, what I say? I said something to the effect of, it's great that you have, you've come, you've been consistent in showing up, or you've been consistent in, coming to our appointments or what have you. That's an affirmation. And with that affirmation, as she described, that's more personal. That's more personal about something that you have control over. And we got to be mindful that people who are, even if it's in a nutritional setting, if it's physical therapy, if it's substance use, people people can be distrustful of clinicians in general. So they know when you're blowing smoke. So, if someone comes up, it's like, oh my gosh, you showed up today. Well, I know me, first thing out of my mouth is like, so what's the problem? Did you not think I was coming? I mean, it seems as though that came across as defensive, but if someone sounds like they're cheering you, and there's a time and a place for it, but with your clients and your patients, you got to be mindful that they're looking. Sometimes, sadly, in our society, some people are looking to be offended. They just are. So using affirmations to me is something that builds trust. It shows them that not only did I know you can do it, but you're proving it right here, right now. And these are the steps that some people really need to go through with you so that they can take the next step forward to recovery, if it is substance use, or, if it's about how they're eating, or just the exercise, or whatever it may be. Once you lift them up, because people have an innate desire to be accepted. And I've said it before, I don't care how much of a loner somebody is. We want to have, there's some portion of us, some portion of our being that we want to be accepted, and not everybody's looking for a fight. So be mindful, always affirm. Affirming will keep your patience and your patience. Wow. That's the first time I've ever merged that word. Wow. Keep your patients and your clients coming back to you, because they know that they are gaining something from this, even if they've not made a change yet. So the reflective listening piece. And this is the part, again, where I go back to, let's stop talking. Just when we listen reflectively, we are listening attentively. And if you're not listening attentively, and we've all done it, we've caught every third word and what have you. And, I have a patient sitting across from me, and it's something else. I don't know, I get an email or see somebody walk by the window, or see, things take our attention. But what we have to do is we have to quickly come back to center and make sure that we are listening to our clients and our patients.
Listening is fundamental. When we listen in a particular way, that isn't just sitting there understanding, but is reflecting back to the person what your understanding is. So it becomes a conversation, and it feels like an ordinary conversation. If you're just sitting there passively hearing and understanding, but not really responding in any way, that doesn't help the other person very much. And if what you want is to bring out the best in them, then this interactive way, a reflective way of listening is an important skill. And it's a fundamental in motivational interviewing. because beyond that, it's really ways of using that skill strategically and selectively to move, to dance together. You know? So just listening skills in leadership are really useful by themselves, if that's all they do.
So I don't know if anybody paid attention, but this is Bill Miller. This is the one who came up with the concept of MI. So, you know, if he's telling you that listening is one of the biggest, one of the most important pieces of MI, I think that's something to take note of. And one of the things about it, reflective listening, is, you know, your patients have got to know that you're interested. If they don't think that you're interested, I know if I'm having a conversation with someone, and even if it's not anything super serious, and I know that, you know, say their eyes dart off, and you know, your body language changes a little bit. And I'm not insecure. I'll ask, is there, you know, is a problem? Do you need to wait? Do you need to, you know, finish something or what have you? But be mindful that your patients and your clients, they may not be that secure in that situation. And as people, we listen to those things that we have an interest in. You just do. I mean, I could talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I guarantee you, if I started giving everybody on this call instructions to where a pot of gold is, I bet you'll pay attention. But we got to look at our patients like that. Look at your clients like that. Regardless of what you're doing, you've got to look at them giving you, when you're listening to them and you're having the conversations, you've got to listen to them like they're about to give you directions to a pot of gold, maybe figuratively, but they're going to give you some directions as to what to do next. Sometimes people think motivational interviewing is it's rather tough, and it can be, you know, maybe the first few times you do it until you can develop your style. But active listening, you take that absolutely everywhere you go. And this is one of the things, like I said before, I'm one of those psychologists that I try to practice what I preach. And matter of fact, I made the mistake the other day. I was talking to someone, they said, well, you know, you can come back. I was making an appointment. I said, okay, well, you know, I'll come back tomorrow. But they had already told me I'm off tomorrow. And I caught it as soon as I said, okay, well, I'll come back tomorrow. Nope, you're off. Nobody says you got to get this thing perfect, but what you've got to do is, if you've listened well enough, you can catch yourself. It's kind of tough when you got a client before you and they've got to remind you of what they said. That's kind of tough. And the reason why I say it's tough is because sometimes, you remember earlier I said, some people are looking to be offended. They're looking to be dismissed. When you take the time to really listen to people and search for that, you know, the blueprint or the map, to that pot of gold, you'll hear it. I can't tell you you'll hear it on during the first conversation or the second or the fifth, but you will hear it if you listen to them. Oftentimes I've had people before me and, you know, they'll be talking about something and I'll remind them of something else that they said. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention to you, just to let you know. If it's something, you know, well, 2 weeks prior, well, I know I'm not going to drink as much beer when I hang out with my brothers. Okay, it can be 3 weeks down the road. Oh, I got so drunk. Yeah, drunk on what? What were you drinking? Oh, we went through a whole case. Case of what? Beer? Beer. Okay. Remember a couple of weeks ago you said that you were not drinking so much with your brothers. I know. Do you see, whenever you're actively listening, you can recall points that they might have forgotten. And that's a good thing. And I'll tell you why, because if you're recalling points that they might have forgotten, that means that they've gotten real comfortable with you. And that's what you're looking for. You want them to be comfortable enough to just start talking. And I've had people where they get to talking and I'm like, wait, whoa. No, we're not skipping over that one. No, go back. When you do things like that, you let them know that they matter. What they're saying to you matters. You're paying attention to them. And these are the type of things that people who are, say, in substance use situations, substance misuse situations, or what have you, they're used to being disregarded. And when somebody's paying attention to them, again, like I said earlier, these are some of the steps that help people to propel forward to change. These are some of the listening skills that we all need to have. And again, I said we don't just need to do these professionally. This can happen personally as well. When you're present and you're listening and you're focused, you hear a lot of things. I know we're quick to grab our phones and, I'm answering an email, but I'm listening to you. Are we really? You remember earlier when I said if I'm speaking to someone and their body language changes, if you're looking at the nonverbal cues, you watch someone, people will tell you if they're paying attention to you or not. If somebody starts to roll their eyes, if your patient is doing something like this, if you start to notice their body language, have a deeper conversation. We are not trying to win a race with this. If you see something amiss when you're talking to them, stop. But also be mindful that you're not doing these things that cause them to feel as though you're not paying attention to them. And then avoiding interrupting. Sometimes that's kind of tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's kind of tough. Not because I enjoy talking, but sometimes I already see something's going off the rails and I'm trying to, okay, let's stop this now. But you know what? Sometimes you have to let people finish. Especially with your patients. Again, they're used to people over talking them or not taking them seriously. Let's listen. Don't avoid. Don't interrupt and don't judge. Let them tell you whatever truth they feel like they need to tell you. It might be a partial truth. Now there will come a point in time where you can, if something is just, it doesn't sound right. I was on my way, but a pig jumped off the roof and it started flying. Okay, stop it. But you didn't interrupt, right? You didn't judge. There's just some things that just, come on now, that doesn't jive. And then when you ask more clarifying and open-ended questions, it shows that you are paying attention. Like I said earlier, the person I was trying to make an appointment with, just I asked, can I come on this day? No, I'm off. Okay, great. Got it. Got the information. Okay, well, what day can I come? Come on this day. A couple of minutes later, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes later, then that's again when I said, okay, well, I'll be here tomorrow. Oh, no, you're off. When you're paying attention, you can do that. You can self-correct. You can ask the open-ended questions because you're paying attention. And what you don't ever want to do is you don't want to ask an open-ended question that you think is an open-ended question that they've already answered. Don't do that because they see that you're not paying attention. And then you also want to validate the speaker's perspective. Like I said earlier, just the affirmations, no, I get it. I understand why you feel that way. I really do. And I can see why that would upset you. As a matter of fact, it would upset me. We forget, and I probably said this in session 2 or 3, but sometimes we forget to be human. Yes, I know that we are the clinicians and we are before the people and we are here to help them, but don't forget to just act like a human being. You know what? That would have made me mad as well. I see it. You know what? And I want to commend you for how you handled yourself in that situation. When you validate somebody like that, I can guarantee. They may not say it. They may not always say it. That part I cannot guarantee. But I can tell you that people feel heard when you validate their perspective. May not be your perspective, but you're validating their perspective and the emotions that they experience during that time. And then we'll also be mindful not to withhold advice unless it's asked for. That's that writing reflex. I see the problem, I want to get it fixed. It's not for me to get it fixed, it's for you to get it fixed. Withholding advice helps them. You remember we talked about the evoking process? Withholding advice helps them to feel as though they've come up with a solution. Because if you recall, I said one of my goals, and it should be most therapist goals, and I told some of my clients that, my goal is for you to not need me anymore. And this is what you want to do, because by giving them advice, guess what? They're coming right back to that well every time until they learn to stand on their own. So when you're listening, it goes back to avoiding interrupting and judging. Try to avoid giving advice. Just listen. Just listen. And then again, summarize. Summarize the key points of what they said. Summarize the better part of the conversation, and keep in mind that you can summarize throughout the conversation. It doesn't have to be, okay, now we're going into the reflective listening. Stop that. Just summarize as you go. It's okay. Okay, so what I understand you say from what you shared was this A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. Well, guess what? You're going to ask more open-ended questions. And then you're going to get more, you're going to go into affirmation. Then you're going to do reflective. Do you see the process? It's not, and I said this earlier, there's no prescription for how this goes. This is at their pace. So be okay with summarize. Yeah, I don't care if you meet them, you're 10 minutes into the conversation. Be okay with summarizing that first 10 minutes if that's where you're going. Because sometimes, if I'm honest, if I compartmentalize it, so to speak, if I summarize the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we can move on to something else versus dragging, continue to ask an open-ended question about one main topic, for the next 30, 45 minutes. That's a long time. Step 4, summaries. Darn cat. I don't know if anybody has heard of this, but nope, I'm not talking about the cat that ran up the tree from my neighbors. I told him to get his cat. I'm not talking about that cat. So, this is an acronym.
Some summaries. Sum it up. Talking about the final of the order skills today, summaries. So think about this. What we pay attention to grows. What we pay attention to grows. So when we're using our ORS skills and conversation, if we are summarizing back everything a client says to us, they are going to stay feeling overwhelmed and muddled. Motivational interviewing summaries are used to consolidate and guide the conversation because motivational interviewing is a guiding style of communication designed to help someone resolve their ambivalence about change. So we are going somewhere with the conversation of motivational interviewing. There is an agenda. There is a focus to the conversation. So summaries are used to help keep that focus. And gosh, it's a relief for clients sometimes to have us help them focus, right? So together we're working on that focus, and in our summaries, we're helping to keep them on focus. And we are guiding the conversation with summaries by paying particular attention to that change talk. Change talk, break it down. Darn cat, desire, ability, reasons, need for change, commitment, action, taken steps. Essentially, that's a whole lot of jargon for a client's argument for change. Why would change be important to this client at this time? And throughout a conversation, we're listening for that change talk. Why might this client want to change right now? And we are collecting that change talk, much as we would like a flower here and a flower there from all the conversation that they're giving. We're listening to that change talk, collecting it, and giving it back to them in the form of a summary. And that is how we are guiding conversation towards change using these motivational interviewing summaries. Some stuff to think about. What we pay attention to grows. And so the more we are reflecting and summarizing that change talk, the more we are cultivating that direction of change with our clients. Have fun with it. Let me know how it goes.
So she hit the nail on the head. Just like I said, it's okay to summarize often. This is, it's not a destination for every conversation you're going to have. 45 minutes to an hour in. Summarize as you go, because sometimes, and I think some people, I don't know if you remember when I said about white coat syndrome, the people whose blood pressure it spikes as soon as they get to the hospital. All of a sudden they got high blood pressure all of a sudden. Some people get nervous when they come. If they're talking to you about something as personal as, say it's substance use or um, exercise or some physical activity or something like that, people get nervous. So it's okay to continue to summarize as you go, because it's almost as though you help them to realize, okay, we've put that to bed. Now, granted, you will go back. We'll go back and you will touch on all of it. But for, that 10, 15-minute block of time that they were speaking, it's okay. Let's summarize this real quick. Okay, so you're saying A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, right? Is that okay? Yeah, that's what I heard. Okay, well, good. Okay. Is there anything else that you think may be causing this situation to persist? Do you see? We just summarize, another open-ended question. It's just this loop. And you have to be okay with the loop. And sometimes, you know what? You may end a session, you may end a session on at reflective listening. You really may. And you can get into a little bit of summary at that time, just so you can close things up for that session. But don't be afraid to. I mean, if you stop where you stop, that's just where you stop. How many times can I say stop in one sentence? So that's just where it goes, right? You have to be fluid. Summarize often. Summarize often. I will do it sometimes if I'm having a conversation with someone. I'm saying, okay, and let's say if it's personal, not so much clinical. If I'm having a conversation with someone, there's a lot of information. Okay, so you want this to go there, that to go this way, and this to go that way. Is it okay? And did I get that correct? Yes. Okay, check. That part is set. I already know what I'm doing on that part. Then I can ask other questions. So again, just remember, it's like it's a loop. It's a constant loop that I can't tell you that you'll ever get out of personally or professionally. It's just one of those things where it's just about communication. And this is darn cat. Like I said, I told you wasn't the cat that ran up the tree. And it is about the change talk, to elicit desire for change. Why would you want to fill in the blank? Then elicit the ability to change. How might you go about that? Then elicit the reason for change. So, what are your reasons for wanting to at least, start walking a half a mile a day? And then elicit the need. And once you start to elicit the need, great question here. How important is it for you to begin to walk? How important is it? Because once you start to place importance on things, when you do that, people then begin to take it important, look at it as something important as well. I mean, think about it. We've all got, we've got notices in the mail or something like that. And when when whatever letter in there, makes it seem as though, it's something super important, then what do? You make it important to you. And that's what, eliciting the need to change, how important is this to you? It'd be different if I said, yeah, it'd be great, man, if you kind of start walking. If I was in that space of, talking to someone about physical activity, it'd be cool if you started walking. Yeah, I might start walking. Okay, well, when do you think you may start walking? I don't know. Do you see how that was just as floppy, and it just had no um, urgency to it. That's the word I'm looking for. Had no urgency to that. But then when you start ascribing importance to it, what is your reason for, wanting to start walking half a mile a day? Well, I think it'll be good activity for me. Okay. How important is it for you to start walking or to, not smoke as much? How important is that to you? It was pretty important. Okay. Well, I mean, is it for family? Is it, for a loved one? Is a loved one motivating you? Is it, so that you can, you can play with your kids, or you can do whatever it may be. Do you see how you started when you start to ascribe importance to it? People begin to then take it seriously. And then the cat part, the commitment. What will you do? This is when you can start to ask, okay, what specific things are you thinking about doing? What will you do? Then list the actions, obviously. What are you considering? Are you thinking, you're going to drive somewhere, go for a walk, walk in the school field? I mean, what are you thinking about doing? And then you want to list it, the taking the steps. What has already been done? What have you done so far? Well, went and bought a new pair of walking shoes. There you go. Okay. Do you see the process? And it's nothing. There's no immediate change right now. Nobody is, saying that they're getting ready to run a marathon. Nothing like that. It's you're trying to get the wheels turning in their heads to see that it is important to make a change, and that they can make that change. And equally as important, I'm here with you. If you want to do this, I'm here with you. And that is it for session 4. Is there any questions anybody has? Is there anything that I was not clear on, or something that you would like more clarity on? Speak now.
We are opening up, so if you would like to speak, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that this has been a really great series, and I feel like I've learned a lot, so thank you very much.
You are welcome. I'm glad you have learned. That's my goal. I want to make sure people are equipped. And I will, bam. You can also reach out. Everybody can reach out if you have any questions or anything like that. I never want you to feel like you're alone in this. And yeah, you can do a bunch of research and things of that nature, but sometimes it's good to ask a question of a real human. That's how I am sometimes. Sometimes I need to ask so that I can hear the answer. And then sometimes there are other solutions that come from a simple conversation. So, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need to. But thank you all for joining. I definitely appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Natalie posted, she didn't have a question, but she just wanted to let you know that she hasn't made it to all the live calls, but she's been listening to the replays and they've been fantastic. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome. You are welcome. I'm glad that you can gain something from it. Well, if there's nothing else, I will turn it back over to you, Carissa. Thank you again for everybody for joining. And I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come before you and to present a little bit of something that I have used for decades. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Tubbs, for sharing all of your expertise. You have made it very understandable. And so I think people are relating to that really well, because it's been be able to understand and see how it would be able to be applicable where before it seemed so overwhelming. So thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to put the sessions together for us.
Absolutely. You are welcome. Thank you.